My dad stood up, tapped his fork against his wine glass, and looked around the room at everyone who had come to celebrate my brother's 35th birthday. Everyone except me. I was standing in the kitchen doorway, still holding the dish towel I'd used to wipe down the counter after spending 3 hours setting up the party. I had blown up balloons. I had picked up the cake. I had made 2 trips to Costco. I had done all of it, same as I always did, because that's just what I did in this family. And when my dad's eyes swept the room and landed on my mom, then on my brother, then on my aunt sitting near the window, I kept waiting. I kept thinking, okay, now he'll look over here. He never did. I just want to say, my dad started, his voice going soft the way it did when he was being sincere, that the people in this room have shown up for us in ways I can't even put into words. You've been there, you've helped carry the weight, and I am so grateful. He raised his glass. Everyone clinked. I set the dish towel down on the counter and walked out the back door. I didn't slam it, I didn't make a scene. I just walked to my car and sat there in the dark for a while, in the driveway of the house I had been paying $900 a month to help keep. I should back up. My name's not important, but the situation is, I'm 28. I work in accounts receivable for a logistics company downtown. I make decent money. Not great, but enough that when my parents went through a rough patch 3 years ago and asked if I could move back in temporarily and help with bills, I said yes. My dad had been laid off. My mom's hours at the salon had been cut. My brother, 2 years older than me, currently between projects, was living at home too, which he'd been doing on and off since his mid-20s. Temporarily, they said. Just until we get back on our feet. 3 years later, I was still there. Still writing a check every month for utilities and groceries. Still covering the Wi-Fi, the streaming subscriptions, the occasional vet bill when our dog needed something. I'd stopped thinking of it as temporary somewhere around month 8. By year 2, I'd stopped thinking of it as anything at all. It was just my life. The thing is, I wasn't miserable, or at least I'd convinced myself I wasn't. My room was big enough. I liked my commute. I had my routines. I told myself it was practical. I told myself family helps family. My brother told himself something different. He told himself he was going to be a podcaster, then a real estate investor, then he was getting into dropshipping. Each new thing came with a new laptop, a new piece of equipment, a new subscription he'd charged to my dad's credit card that my dad would mention once and then let go. I watched it happen so many times I stopped flinching. I'd come home and there'd be a new thing on the kitchen table. A ring light, a label printer, a set of wireless earbuds still in the box, and my mom would say something like, "He's really serious about this one," and I'd just nod and go make dinner. I was good at nodding. The party had been my idea. I want to be clear about that because it matters. My brother's 35th birthday was coming up and he'd been in a funk for weeks. Not doing much, sleeping late, kind of floating. My mom mentioned offhand that it would be nice to do something special, and I said I'd handle it. I meant it. I planned a backyard thing with string lights, catered food from the Italian place on Clement Street he loves, a cake from the bakery that does the almond cream filling. I made a playlist. I called the relatives. I coordinated with my aunt about what she was bringing. I did it all because I thought it would be nice, and because making things nice was something I was apparently very good at. 43 people came. The yard looked beautiful. My brother walked outside and genuinely gasped, and for a second I felt that particular satisfaction of pulling something off, of making someone happy. Then the night went on, and the particular way things worked in my family started to settle back in like weather. My brother was at the center of everything, which was fine. It was his birthday. But the longer the evening went, the more I noticed myself at the edges of it, filling ice, replacing the paper napkins, doing quiet, functional things while everyone else laughed and talked. My mom would look over occasionally and give me this small nod that I'd learned to read as "You're doing great. Keep going." My dad circulated and told stories, and then he gave the toast. I replayed it in my car afterward. The way he'd said the people in this room. The way he'd said "You've shown up." He wasn't wrong, exactly. The people in that room had shown up. They'd driven across town, brought gifts, eaten the food I'd ordered. But I had paid for the food. I had paid for the lights strung above their heads. I had been paying for the roof above this party for 3 years. I wasn't looking for applause. I wasn't expecting a speech about me. I just wanted to be seen. Just once. Just a little. I sat in my car and stared at the garage door and I thought, this is the 47th time I have felt invisible in this house. I'm not sure why that specific number came to mind. I don't keep count, but it felt right. I went back inside after about 10 minutes because the alternative was driving away and I hadn't decided anything yet. I washed dishes, I helped my aunt with her coat when she left, I said goodnight to the cousins. I did all of it, and when the last guest was gone and it was just me and my parents and my brother, I helped clear the folding tables. My brother was on his phone. My mom was untangling the string lights. My dad had gone to bed early, he gets headaches. At some point, my mom looked over at me and said, "Did you have fun tonight?" I paused. "Sure. You seemed a little off. I'm fine." She went back to the lights. "You know your dad is so proud of you." She said it like a fact, like it was just sitting there waiting to be acknowledged. And I stood there with a stack of plastic cups and I thought, if he's proud of me, why couldn't he say so? Why couldn't he say my name? Just once. I didn't say any of that. I said, "Good night, Mom," and I went upstairs. I lay in bed that night and stared at the ceiling and made a decision that I didn't fully understand yet. The next morning was a Saturday. I got up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a legal pad. I pulled up my bank account. I pulled up the shared household spreadsheet I maintained, the one no one else updated but that I kept current every month. I looked at the numbers. In the 3 years I'd lived there, I had contributed approximately $38,000 to that household. The $900 a month, plus the groceries, plus the utilities, plus about a dozen one-time things. A plumber, a new water heater, the ER copay when my dad had that chest scare 2 winters ago. $38,000. I wasn't angry, exactly. I was just seeing it clearly for the first time. And once I saw it, I couldn't make myself unsee it. I had a friend from college who'd been renting a place in the outer Sunset since we were 25. Her apartment was a 2-bedroom that she shared with one roommate. Her rent was $1,400 a month, split 2 ways. She had her own bathroom. She had a kitchen that was just hers in the mornings. She had a front door that she could close and know was closed. I'd always thought I was being smart, practical, saving money, helping family. What I'd actually been doing was subsidizing a situation that had never once been evaluated for whether it was working for me. I finished my coffee, I went for a walk. I came home and my brother was sitting on the couch playing a game with headphones on, and I stood in the living room and looked at him for a second. This man who was 35 years old as of yesterday, who had never once asked me if I needed help with anything, and I felt something inside me that I can only describe as a quiet door closing, not slamming, closing, gently, firmly. I started looking for apartments that same weekend. I did it quietly, the way I did most things. I pulled up listings in a spreadsheet. I noted square footage and laundry situations and distance from my office. I scheduled 2 viewings for the following Wednesday under the guise of errands. The first place was fine. The second one, I walked in and the light was coming through the west-facing windows at that particular late afternoon angle, and the living room was quiet, and I stood there thinking about what it would feel like to have groceries that were mine, and a couch that was mine, and a morning that was entirely my own, and I put down a deposit before I left the building. I told my parents 2 weeks later. I sat down with them after dinner at the kitchen table that I had bought, and I said, "I found a place. I'm going to move out at the end of the month." There was a silence. My mom said, "What?" My dad said, "Where is this coming from?" I had thought about what I was going to say. I'd been thinking about it for 2 weeks, actually. I told them that I loved them, and that I'd been glad to help out, and that I felt it was time. I didn't bring up the toast. I didn't bring up the $38,000. I didn't bring up any of it. My dad said, "You couldn't give us more notice?" My mom looked like I'd told her something had died. My brother, who had apparently been listening from the hallway, came into the kitchen and said, "Are you serious right now?" I looked at him. "Yes. You can't just leave. I have a lease." "We're a family," he said, and I remember thinking that was a strange thing for him to say, not "we need you" or "we'll miss you," but "we're a family," like that was an argument, like that settled something. I said, "I know." The following weeks were uncomfortable in the specific way that things get uncomfortable when someone does something completely reasonable that disrupts an unreasonable arrangement. My mom had a habit of mentioning things. The way she mentioned the utility bill was going to be higher now, the way she mentioned that she'd need help covering the groceries. Not directly asking, just mentioning. I kept my responses short, I kept packing. My brother started texting me things like, "You know this is going to be hard on them, right? And I just think you should think about what you're doing to this family." I read the texts and I put the phone down and I kept packing. Moving day came. I had hired a small local moving company, 3 guys, a truck, done in 3 hours. My mom came and stood in the doorway of my old room while they carried things out, and I could feel her there, watching. But I didn't know what she wanted from me. I gave her a hug when I left. She hugged me back and didn't say anything, which was somehow worse than if she'd said something. My dad helped carry a box to the truck, and that was the only thing he did. And when he went back inside, I thought about the toast again. I thought about all the times I'd been in the margins. And then I got into my car and I drove to my apartment. My apartment, that's still a phrase I have to stop and sit with sometimes. The first morning I woke up, there was a Tuesday. I had a flight of stairs that led to a small landing that was just mine. I had a refrigerator that had only my food in it. I had a window over the kitchen sink that looked out onto a maple tree that was just starting to go orange, and I stood at that window and drank my coffee, and didn't do anything for anyone for an entire half hour, and it was one of the better half hours I can remember having. I texted my friend who'd been in her apartment all those years. I said, I get it now, I finally get it. She sent back a string of emojis and then, welcome to your actual life. The call started about 6 weeks later. My brother texted first, which he sometimes does when he wants something, but doesn't want to seem like he's asking directly. It was a long message, and the gist of it was that they'd gotten a letter. Something about the house insurance lapsing. Apparently my dad had set up autopay from an account that had been quietly overdrawn for months, and the insurance company had sent notices that no one had opened. The letter they'd received was a final notice. He didn't ask me for money directly. He just told me about the letter very casually and then asked if I was doing okay and whether I had a minute to chat. I didn't call back that day. I went to the gym, I made dinner, I watched an episode of a show I'd been working through. And when I went to bed, I thought about that letter, and I thought about my dad's toast, and I thought about the dish towel I'd been holding when he gave it, and I went to sleep. My mom called the next morning. That one I answered, because she was my mom, and I wasn't ready to be the kind of person who didn't answer their mother's calls. She told me about the insurance. She told me about some other things. A car payment that was late, a credit card balance that had gotten out of hand, apparently tied to some of my brother's equipment purchases that my dad had been covering and not mentioning. I'm just telling you, she said. I'm not asking you for anything. I said, I know, we'll figure it out. I know you will. There was a pause. It's just hard without your help. And there it was. Not an accusation. Just a fact, stated plainly. An accounting of my absence framed as the cause of the current problem, rather than the current problem being the result of how things had been run long before I ever moved back in. I said, Mom, I love you, but I can't come back. I'm not asking you to come back. Then what are you asking? Another pause. I don't know. We stayed on the phone for a while after that, not really saying anything. When we hung up, I sat with my coffee and looked out the window at my maple tree, and I let myself feel bad about it. Not guilty, bad. There's a difference. Guilt says you did something wrong. Bad just says this is a hard thing and it hurts. I let it hurt for a little while, and then I got ready for work. My brother called 11 times over the following 3 weeks. I answered twice. The first time he asked if I could loan them some money, just to bridge the gap, and I said no, and I said it in the same tone I would use to say I didn't want mustard on my sandwich. Just no, not mean, not angry, just clear. He said, Are you serious? I said, yes. He said some other things after that, some of which were unkind, and I listened without responding much and then said I had to go. The second call was shorter. He'd apparently looked into refinancing the house and it wasn't going to work without a cosigner, and he wanted to know if I'd consider it, and I said no, and he said some of the same unkind things again, and I said goodbye. I blocked his number after the second call, not out of anger. Out of a practical decision that hearing my phone ring and seeing his name had started to make my chest feel tight, and I wasn't willing to carry that around. I want to be honest about the blocking, because I know some people won't understand it. I know some people think you should always leave the line open, always be available, always give family another chance. I've believed that too. I believed it for years. But there's a version of always leaving the door open that really just means always being available to be asked for things, and I was done being that version of myself. My dad called once, just once, which is very much his pattern. He retreats where my brother escalates. He left a voicemail that I've listened to more times than I'd like to admit. He said he was sorry the birthday party hadn't felt right. He didn't know exactly what I was feeling, but he could tell something had shifted. He said he knew he didn't always say the things he should say. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask me to come back. He just said he was sorry and that he loved me. I sat with that voicemail for a long time. I called him back 2 days later. We talked for about 40 minutes. It wasn't a resolution. I'm not sure what resolution even looks like between a parent and a child when the wound is years of quiet not quite being seen rather than one clean break. But it was something. It was him actually saying the words out loud to my face, or close enough. And it was me saying that I needed the space I'd made for myself, that I wasn't going away. But that I needed the space. He said, I understand. I'm not entirely sure he did. But he said it and he sounded like he meant it, and sometimes that's the beginning. The house went on the market in early spring. I didn't find out through them. I was driving past the old neighborhood to get to a friend's place, and I saw the sign. Standard issue, a local realtor, the kind of sign that shows up in front of a house and makes the whole thing suddenly real in a way it wasn't before. I pulled over and sat there for a second. I thought about the kitchen table I'd bought them, the water heater, the birthday party with the string lights. I thought about my dad's voice saying the people in this room. I didn't feel vindicated, exactly. I didn't feel like I'd won anything. What I felt was something more like the quiet after a storm. Not happy, just clear. Everything was what it was. Everyone had made the choices they'd made. The house was going to be sold, and they were going to have to figure out something smaller and more manageable. And that was the result of how things had been run, and it had nothing to do with me, not really, not at the core of it. I put the car in drive and kept going. My mom and I talk on the phone now. Not every week, but often enough. She's staying with my aunt for a while, which I think is actually good for her. My aunt has always been steadier, more practical, more willing to say true things out loud. My mom sounds different on the phone lately, less like she's managing things and more like she's just talking. My brother is renting a room from a friend across town. I don't know much more than that, and I haven't asked. My dad is somewhere I don't fully have the address for yet. That one's going to take more time. What I do know is this. My apartment still has the maple tree outside the kitchen window. It came all the way through fall, and it's bare now, just branches. But I've been watching it long enough that I know what it looked like before, and I know what it's going to look like when it comes back. I'm learning to be a person who stays in one place long enough to watch things change. I'm learning that the life you build when you finally stop building it for everyone else is not the life you imagined. It's smaller in some ways, more ordinary. There are days when I call to share something good, and there's no one there who knows the full version of what came before it. That part is hard, but the mornings are mine, the groceries are mine, the quiet is mine, and I am, for the first time in a long time, not holding a dish towel waiting for someone to finally look over.